And so this is the Watershed Advisory Committee meeting for the Cuyahoga River North Watershed. And like I said, my name is Donna Friedman. So if you have questions, feel free to either put those questions in the chat and I will moderate them, or raise your hand. And when I call on you, you're welcome to unmute and ask your question at that time. The agenda is up on the slide now. You should be able to read that. So we have quite a bit to get through, but lots of good stuff, some new information that I don't think folks have heard yet. So look forward to that. And with that, I will turn it over to Matt Sharver, Deputy Director of Watershed Programs, for some program highlights.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Just wanted to take a couple brief moments here on behalf of the team here at the district to welcome everyone and for participating again in our Watershed Advisory Committee meetings. You're going to get some good program updates today. Towards the end of the agenda, a couple of ones that I'm going to just call out specifically. We have some code revisions coming to Titles 3, 4, and Title 5, our Stormwater Management Code. Title 3 being our separate sanitary sewer code, and Title 4 being our combined sewer code. Jeff Jowett's going to cover those for us in greater detail. So there's going to be opportunities for public or member community comment on those codes, and that'll be coming here shortly to you all in terms of the member communities. And there'll be lots of engagement after that. I think what's exciting for us is part of the Title III code changes for the separate sanitary sewers programming is we're taking a more collaborative approach. And we're introducing our water quality technical support program that will lead hopefully many of our member communities to further member community infrastructure program funding for sanitary sewer rehabilitation and replacement. So that's on the horizon, and we'll be engaging on that here the rest of this winter into the 2023 year. And I also want to let you know there'll be some updates on our infrastructure funding that accompanies that. So that'll be talked about later in the presentation. And we wouldn't be able to open comments up without mentioning the community cost share program. It continues to go well. We just turned in a really good month of reimbursements. I see over $1 million is being moved out to the member community. So keep up the good work of working with the watershed team leaders and getting those applications in for eligible projects. There's still a pretty decent amount of money available that's unspoken by the member communities, roughly about 12.6 million. So if you have needs in the stormwater arena, be sure to reach out to continue to use those funds as we move through the remainder of this year into next. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Donna Friedman. Thanks.
Matt. Okay, so starting off with our new watershed team leader map, you may have noticed that the communities and the watershed team leaders have shifted. So Jeff Jowett was promoted to a new role. You'll hear from him today. Myron Borchards left us for Seattle and is doing very well there. And we have two new hires. So Cisco Rivera will be covering the east side of our communities. You can see him there in dark blue. And then Nicole Velez will be covering the Rocky River area in medium blue. We use blue for everything, which just makes it really confusing, but that's okay. So you see those west side communities, those are Nikki's. In light blue, the lightest shade of blue you see, that is yet to be determined. So we're in our hiring process right now for that watershed team leader position. And so once we get someone new on board, I'll be sure to email all of our communities and let them know that their new watershed team leader has been assigned. So look for that in the future. Hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have that person on board. I know for some of you, you do fall in that light blue portion. In the interim, I am the watershed team leader for those communities. But I know that there might also be some folks here that are in Nicole Velez area as well. And so with that, over to community cost share. Matt did talk about this a little bit. Right now, there are 111 projects with executed agreements. You can see that there are a lot of allocation agreements. Those allocation agreements are for larger projects and they allow for reimbursement over a 5-year period. And so if you have larger projects that you don't have money for currently, but you think over, a 5-year period, you would have that built up, then you're welcome to talk to your watershed team leader and they can talk about that allocation agreement as a possibility compared to a standard agreement when all of that funding is encumbered right off the bat. There is still money in the hopper for our member communities here. So if you do have projects that you're interested in, but you're not sure about eligibility, again, reach out to your watershed team leader. They should be able to help you. A couple more highlights. Please remember that you do need an approved and executed agreement before a project begins in order for you to request reimbursement. And then also, if your project is complete or if you've had some work done on the project and you'd like to request reimbursement, please do that so we can start moving that money off of our books and onto yours. This slide just shows the reimbursement of money from the community cost share program over our 56 member communities from 2016 to 2022. So you can see there's almost $38 million there. So please continue to request reimbursement and put in for projects. And then before I turn it over, just a reminder, we do have our report a flood tool. This tool helps us to know where you guys are having flooding issues, but it also is a tool for you to use. So this is a great way to track flooding in your area after a large storm event. That data is then represented visually on a map and also can be exported for grant applications, including our member community infrastructure program grant. So if you know that a certain area is having a lot of flooding, if you've been entering that report of flood tool data, you can then export that data and use that for your grant application. So last year, or since we've launched, I think we've had about 300 or 400 data points entered in, but we'd love to see more. If you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. The tool is incredibly easy to use. It's very step-by-step, and we also have a document that we can send along so that you have instructions as you go through it or as your staff goes through it. And with that, I will turn it over to Annie Roberto. She's one of our stormwater inspectors from our inspection and maintenance team. Annie?
Hi, thanks, Donna. I appreciate it. Yes, I'm going to give you a brief overview of our inspection and maintenance. To date, since March of 2020, we have performed 261 inspections in the Cuyahoga River North Watershed, 12 of those being CCTV inspections. We had 2 customer cases. We've done 123 inspections that were preventative routine follow-ups, as well as 121 debris inspections, which included our other responsible party inspections at crossings that might be owned by ODOT or the county or the city, just checking those for debris. And we performed 3 urgent storm responses. And on to maintenance. So we have removed 230 cubic yards of debris and 15 cubic yards of sediment in the north. So 27 of those being debris and sediment removal projects. We've also performed 4 demolition projects and 1 tree removal. Some of the larger scale projects that we performed recently, one of these is a large scale sediment removal project that we did at Riverview Road in Brecksville. Riverview Road frequently floods, flow regularly overtops the roadway during wet weather, causing road closures. So this crossing is immediately downstream of sediment vaults, and there was minimal freeboard, about 3 inches at the crossing under Riverview Road. So this project that we performed created over a foot of freeboard by dredging 500 feet downstream of Riverview Road. We also jetted sediment from underneath the crossing, performed mechanical and hydrovac removal of the sediment from the vaults, and we also hydrovaced sediment 150 feet upstream of the vaults within the culverted streams. So that totaled 472 cubic yards of sediment that we removed. The two culverts that are upstream that discharge to the sediment vaults were also inspected. One of those carries the primary stream flow to the vaults, and the other is activated during wet weather and acts as an overflow channel. So we found that there was some woody debris accumulation in the culverts, which was removed to improve conveyance, but we did leave some bedload material within those culverts. We also completed a project upstream of Riverview Road crossing. This is Pico Lake and Brecksville. And this basin was filled with sediment and overgrown vegetation. It was designed to be a 1.25 acre basin, and it was designed to be a wet basin. But this dredging project is nearing completion to restore the storage capacity to Pico Lake. We removed roughly 8,000 cubic yards of sediment from the basin, and this will allow sediment to be captured within the basin to reduce the sediment that's transported downstream to the vaults and the Riverview Road crossing. So the combination of both of these projects is going to continue to allow water to flow more freely and reduce the flooding at Riverview Road. These are both part of an interim project to raise Riverview Road and will provide immediate relief to the nearby residents until that's completed. The next project I'm going to talk about is our Echo Lake Basin Drawdown in Strongsville. So the goal for this project is to restore the wet pond to a natural stream channel. The stormwater master planners found that there was no flood reduction benefit in having the pond in place. And the homeowners association and the residents surrounding this are on board with this project. This project involved the gradual notching of the concrete impounding structure. And the first notching was performed in February of 2020, which allowed a stream channel to form, and bare areas were then planted with native seed mix. So the second notching took place in August of 2022, which removed 1 foot of concrete across the concrete weir. And a future project will fully remove the dam and the crossing to allow restoration to a natural stream channel. Lastly, we completed a tree planting project. As part of our project monitoring plans that we perform at each of our completed project sites, we do this biannually. We identify areas where vegetation might be lacking or it's died off, and where we can install additional plantings. So the district received Great Lakes Restoration Initiative funds to plant trees in the county for stormwater management. So we chose 3 sites along Stickney Creek, Baldwin Creek, and Pepperloose Creek to install over 130 trees at. And we continue to look for opportunities where we can improve the vegetation as needed at all of our project sites. And if there aren't any questions, I'll pass it to Rachel Webb. She's a project manager in Watershed Technical Support.
Thanks, Annie. So I am your Watershed Technical Support representative for today. And I'm going to walk you through where we are with stormwater master plans, and more specifically advanced planning, because we have officially completed all of our stormwater master plans. And so there are, as we've mentioned before, areas that came from the stormwater master plan that need some additional work, either because of the size, type, complexity of the project. So we do have 2 contracts for stormwater or advanced stormwater planning. You can go to the next slide. Excuse me, we are closing out that first contract that we had with Waits Trim at the end of this year. And I've reviewed in the past, we've done about 7-8 tasks under that advanced planning project. So really had a lot of success with it. And we are well into advanced planning 2. We're working with Jacobs. Next slide. And one of the first tasks that we are taking on with this advanced planning is Puritas Basin. The Stormwater Master Plan actually did not do the standard alternative analysis here because there were so many local inputs into the basin and the environmental issues. So it was quite complex. So we are taking it on for advanced planning and doing a more, I would say, more traditional look that we did under the master plan. So assessing what's going on here and then trying to see what we can do in terms of maximizing capture and control of stormwater in the basin, while also taking into consideration the environmental concerns that are associated with Puritas Basin. So that is currently underway. We're starting off with some flow monitoring and gonna evaluate the model and make updates there. So more to come. The second task that we are looking at is in the Milligan, McGowan, Carrington Avenue area of Cleveland. West 130th borders or runs right through this area. We are looking also doing some flow monitoring, but also assessing some additional storage opportunities that we did not look at in master planning, and looking at this area in terms of short-term and long-term goals. So that is also underway. So more to come. So that's advanced planning that we have going on in the area. Also wanted to highlight a 319 grant program projects that's also captured under Watershed Technical Support. Excuse me. Since 2018, we provided matching funds for 13 319 projects in our service area. You can see a couple that are listed here as it relates to Cuyahoga River North, West Creek. The Padua Stream Restoration is one of the 319 projects that we have provided matching funding to. Wanted to highlight these to you as the communities in terms of opportunities that you may see or watershed groups you're working with from our Stormwater Master Plan or other sources for those types of projects. So if you want to talk further about this, give us a ring, Donna, or one of the other watershed team leaders, and happy to talk further about it. The 319 projects are an important piece, and they do a lot of really good stream restoration across the service area. So kind of short and sweet for advanced planning, a lot happening, a lot going on, and some looking forward to those updates in the next WAC meeting in, I believe, March. So should have a lot more to show you. At this point, I'm going to pass it over to George Remius, who is Manager of Stormwater Strategic Support.
Thanks, Rachel. Next slide, please. All right, so this is a quick overview of what we're going to talk about. I'm going to talk a little bit about our model data management, a new contract with the USGS and some of the new features that come along with that, and then some of the new features that we recently invested with our gauge adjusted radar rainfall contract, and an ask for some potential pilot member communities to help with one of those new features. So with our model data management contract that started late February of this year, the intent is to make sure that we always have master models available for everyone here in the service area as they conduct either some of their own analysis or are doing their own projects, to make sure that we represent that in here. And so we've been busy trying to take the current projects that we're aware of, and with some new standards, applying those across the service area for consistency. And we'll give you a quick update on where those models are. But the reason why we do the updates, go back to that slide, please. New construction, whether there's some new alternatives, some of the standards we talked about, and as Rachel touched on, as part of advanced planning, we start extending into the local system. Those are some of the reasons why we have these master models. And so we've started to apply these new standards and some of these updates to the Big Creek, Mill Creek, and Chippewa Creek watersheds. The Abram, Baldwin, and West Creek are underway, and the intent is to apply those standards to all the other models as some of those others are completed. So on to the USGS agreement. The board recently passed this on October 6th, the last Thursday. And as part of this, this agreement, we usually have an agreement with them every year. We've been doing this now. I think this is year 7 or 8 at a minimum. We have the stream monitors, which I think a lot of people think about. And so we had 25 with them in the past. And this year we elected to add 2 new ones. There's one over in Big Creek by Brook Park, just upstream of Sam's Club, where we're going to be adding a new one there. And then there's a new site in the lower Cuyahoga River by the Irishtown Bend that we also will be installing, bringing our total stream gauges to 27 under this contract. In addition to that, we are also going to be getting some new rain gauges installed through the USGS contract. What you see here is what the different blue raindrops or where the district's existing rain gauges are. And we're also investing in some rain gauges through the USGS, 11 total. There was one existing before over in the Pepper Creek, Pepper Pike area. And then the other 10, which are these purple circles with the black dots, are the new ones. And these are pluvial rain gauges, which are more weighted rain gauges versus the normal tipping bucket. And the reason why we elected to go with these is the concern for more intense storm events occurring across the service area and how these are better suited to capture that accuracy of those intense events. And they're also considered a little bit more reliable overall. So we're going to test these out, and we have 10 new ones, and that's something that'll be installed here over the coming months. Also, something new is along the Cuyahoga River itself, we're going to be working with the USGS to develop flood inundation mapping for 16.4 miles. These figures that you see here to the right kind of reflect those stretches of the Cuyahoga River. One there that's starting kind of near the Harvard Avenue and extending a little further upstream. And then this third one is kind of by Vaughn Road from I-271 between Vaughn Road and downstream of that as well. And so those areas are going to get this flood inundation mapping using HEC-RAS models to reflect that area. If you go to the next slide, there's a little example of what this looks like. And all these, once this is developed, it'll be online, just like all the other USGS data for free to the public access. And it'll kind of almost act as a slider bar in this one graphic that you see with the purple, red, orange, yellow. Those are those National Weather Service flood stages of the action, minor, moderate, and major. And then you kind of see the stream level in its current state, as well as in this case, there's some predicted for this particular site. But you can slide up and down on that scale, and the inundation mapping that you see to the right would then change, expand, and contract based upon that stage. And we feel this will be a great value to understand what could be potentially flooded, and then start utilizing this with our new product in the GAR for advanced flood warning to help communities, agencies, businesses, and residents to prepare in the event of a big storm. All right, on to our gauge-adjusted radar rainfall or GAR services. We've been using GAR data since 2016 to support various facets of both our stormwater and wastewater program. And it wasn't until recently this summer that we decided to invest in a couple of new products. Originally, what we were working on is this grid-based radar rainfall data. It takes the NOAA radar rainfall and then adjusts it based upon the district rain gauges and other surrounding rain gauges and makes that gauge adjusted radar rainfall in 5-minute time steps in a 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer grid across over 1,300 square miles. So it covers all the different watersheds, the Rocky, Chagrin, most of the Cuyahoga River, and then the Lake Erie direct tribs. And we were doing that to collect end of month data. So 5-minute time steps for all those grids at the end of the month. But we realized we wanted to have some additional tools to support our urgent storm event response. And they had some of those tools available, and we decided to invest in those this summer. And we're going to talk a little bit about those. So the first one is related to forecasting services. And so there's 3 different services that they provided. One of them is this, they call it preview, and this gives us a forecasting of rainfall in a 0 to 1 hour, up to 1 hour ahead of time in 5-minute time steps for the entire grid. The second one takes the NOAA product, a high rapid refresh rate data, which forecasts rainfall from a 1 to 18 hour forecast, and that's in 1 hour time steps. And then the third product, the NDFD, that is also a NOAA product, and that is a 1 to 3 day forecast in 6 hour time steps. And so you can use this to help understand what rainfall they think is occurring for whatever time period that it wants. You could click on any of those grids. And this little example here is just a call out of one of those grids where you can see not only the incremental amounts that are on the top, but also the cumulative totals of that for that period of time, to just better understand when we think rain may be coming and when it's significant enough to do some advanced warning for preparation. The next thing that we invested in is, instead of that end of the month gauge adjusted radar rainfall, now we're also exploring this near real time, where we have all of the district's 30 rain gauges. And once the USGS rain gauges are installed, they will be sending data as well to adjust that radar rainfall in essentially near real time. Therefore, we almost have a real near real-time adjusted GAR data that we can use to better support urgent storm events. There's also what they refer to as watch points. And so all the USGS monitors, so not only the ones that we are a co-sponsor of or fully sponsored, but also some of the other rain or stormwater monitors that exist. All of those are sent to this site, in addition to some other monitors that we have installed. And they're all listed here to this site that we can review at a snapshot. And you can see there's nearly 100 monitors, one way or another, that are currently being pushed over for review. And you can define a couple of different stages to look at on the particular graph to understand when their flooding may exist or when flooding may be about to occur. And so our intent is for each of those monitors to have those values noted, so you can look at those figures in a snap and understand where we think flooding exists, and equally important, where flooding doesn't exist, so we can allocate resources accordingly. And then finally, this one area here, this rules manager and alert notifications, based upon all these different data sets, we can then create rules and develop alerts based upon those rules to a group of people, either through phone, text, or email, of what that rule was. So if someone was interested in understanding, let me know when 3 inches of rain has occurred in my area, create a rule, send out an alert. We can do that, and we can create it for a group of people, or we can create it for a single person. Whether or not you are interested in your stream, let me know when this particular monitor reaches a flood stage. We can do this for forecasted data sets, the existing, the real time, or any of the monitors. And we're also going to be talking to the company to create complex rules. So if the monitor is, say, at an action stage, and then there's forecasted additional 2-3 inches of rain that's projected to occur that same day, maybe that's the rule that makes sense, and that's the alert to develop. And so with that, we realize there's a lot of opportunity here, but also a lot of questions that people may have before we proceed going with those rules. And so with that, moving on to the last slide, if there's a lot of opportunity for regional rules, there's also a lot of opportunity for local rules. And so we're, I guess, for those who might be interested in an area that they would like us to work with them to develop some of these particular rules. If you can notify your respective team leader of your interest, then we would certainly want to reach out to you and sit down and better understand what rules might make sense for advance warning, whether it's we think this kind of rainfall is occurring, ongoing during the storm event. These are the sites that we think there's a lot of heavy rain, or there's current flooding, or even post-storm events, and work with you on who those groups of people might be, what kind of contact would make sense, and actually just pilot some of this stuff out and see if this is right for you, and tweak these rules accordingly. So once again, if you're interested in being a pilot community, please notify your team leaders and we will reach out and follow up. I think that was my last slide.
I think so, George. Thanks. I just want to check in. Are the slides tracking okay for everyone? I did get a text saying that the slides were off or not advancing, but I'm getting some thumbs up. So if you are having any issues, feel free to log out, log back in. Hopefully everything looks fine. And I know that was a lot of new information from George. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask or that they wanted to bring up? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to Janet Popielski, who is the manager, the Stormwater Program Manager. Janet?
Thanks, Donna. So I'm going to run through a couple examples of our design and construction projects that fall within the Cuyahoga River North Watershed. But just to give you an idea of what all we are working on in the design and construction group, here's a list of all of the projects that are currently in active status. So there's 38 projects listed here that total over $124 million in construction. Out of these, 16 are currently in active construction or just about to be awarded. And then 22 are in design, either in final design phase or the one at the very bottom, we're in the process of developing an RFP for right now. So we have our program pretty laid out, as you can see, for everything that we'll be awarding up through 2024. And then as we go through our budgeting season, which is right now, we'll be adding new projects on so that we'll be looking at what we'll be constructing as we go into 2025 and the later years. So in the stormwater design program, just a couple of projects to highlight. We have some what we call culverted stream packages that we've started to do design work on. Over the years, we've been inspecting all of the sections of culverted stream along the regional system to identify culverts that are in need of either spot repairs, relining, or replacement. And out of that, we've now developed these packages that we'll be putting out to bid in the next coming years. This first one is focused in Garfield Heights along Mill Creek. This is intended to be spot repairs along sections of culvert that are in fair condition, but definitely their life can be extended by doing some spot repairs along these areas. The next project that I'll highlight takes it to the next level. So this is what we're calling our renewal of culverted streams. And this project involves 3 sections of culverted streams, which are in very poor condition and need to either be completely relined or completely replaced. In the first image there to the left, there's 2 sections of culverted stream, again in Mill Creek. The first one to the north is around the Marymount campus. And then the second one south of I-480 is running through some residential neighborhoods. So you can see those 2 asset IDs labeled there. And then a third culverted stream section, oops, sorry, go one back real quick. Sorry about that. A third culverted stream section was identified on the west branch of Big Creek in the city of Cleveland, right near West 130th Street. And that is the one that you see down there in the bottom corner. Now we can go ahead. Also, we are working on some more flood-related types of projects. This one addresses issues along the Kerruish in the Kerruish Basin and upstream of it. The Kerruish Basin is owned by the city of Cleveland, and it was built to address flooding downstream in Cleveland and also in Maple Heights. It is a basin that we've done quite a bit of sediment removal in the past because of the eroding stream banks directly upstream of it. We also have some local as well as some district infrastructure. There's a local sanitary sewer that you can see in the one photo that's actually hanging above the stream at this point in time. And it's been reinforced with just some telephone poles, unfortunately. So we will be addressing that as part of the project. And then the Mill Creek Interceptor, which is encased in concrete just upstream of Kerruish Basin as well. So, and again, this one is just kicking off design right now. And then the last design project that I'll highlight is in the city of Parma. This is the Veteran Basin improvements. The area downstream of this is on West Creek, and the area downstream of Veterans Basin has experienced quite a bit of flooding over the years. What we'll be doing is we'll be taking basically a recreational or an aesthetic pond and converting it into a dry detention basin. We're also going to be expanding the basin in order to get more capacity. One of the benefits of a project like this is that this is happening in a public park. So we'll be working with the city to do some enhancements in there, but the property is available. So anywhere that we can repurpose anything that is owned by one of the communities, there's an advantage to that because we can just go ahead and we don't have to negotiate property purchases or easements. So it really does help the project along. So if you have anything in your communities that could possibly be repurposed for stormwater detention or for floodplain expansion, we'll be happy to work with you on that. In the stormwater construction group, they've been working on, as I mentioned before, 16 different projects. One of them is the Big Creek flood reduction near Sprague Road in the cities of North Royalton and Parma. We've been working on this project for quite a few years, first with the acquisition of 2 properties that are shown in shades. They're shaded in the background there on the drawing that you see. We purchased those properties, we demolished those homes. We're realigning and restoring the stream section through there, but we're also going to be upsizing the crossing under Sprague Road. Both of the communities have contributed towards the replacement of that culvert, and so we're very happy to be working with them. And we're always willing to partner up on a project like this. If there's a roadway crossing that needs to be improved, upsized, replaced, we're happy to incorporate that into the project and work with you on a cost share agreement for that. Also in Parma, we've kicked off our Upper Ridgewood Basin improvements. This project is somewhat similar to the Veterans Basin that I highlighted for the design projects. This again was a recreational pond located in Parma on parkland that we are in the process of dewatering, and then we'll be expanding it to create more storage to help reduce the flooding downstream. Both of these projects were also part of a larger advanced planning problem area where, as Rachel had mentioned before, we took some large project areas and we broke them down, and we're looking for the pieces of those projects that we can move forward with sooner than later. So both of these have come out of that, and we'll be looking for more opportunities like this as we continue on with the program. And then the last construction project that I'll highlight is our debris racks and roads project. This project kicked off a couple years ago. We were addressing access issues and also building debris racks in 6 different locations along the regional system. And this really speaks to how we're trying to improve our maintenance program. These were areas that we have had repetitive issues with debris buildup. The site that you see there in progress, that's the Emerald Parkway culvert. That culvert had collapsed several years ago, and we relined it, but we continued to have debris issues in the culvert, and we had issues with getting down to it. So with a project like this, we're really improving our maintenance, our ability to get to the site, our ability to make sure that the debris is not getting stuck inside the culverts. which of course is much more difficult to remove. And we'll be continuing to look for opportunities like this throughout the regional system. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Jowett, our Community Discharge Permit Program Manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. So as Matt mentioned at the beginning of the meeting here, that we are updating our code of regulations. And so I'm going to provide you an overview on the updates to Title III, our separate sanitary sewer code of regulations, and Title IV, our combined sewer regulations, and then a minor change to our Title V, which is our stormwater code of regulations. So what we did with Title III and Title IV, we pretty much did a complete repeal and replacement of those documents to bring them updated and align them with the other code of regulations that the sewer district has. So Title III provides requirements and procedures for communities served by the district that have separate sanitary sewers, and Title IV provides requirements and procedures for communities served by the district that have combined sewers and or are tributary to the district's combined sewer system. Sewer district gets the authority for these codes of regulations through the Ohio Revised Code, section 611908. Both of these titles help to ensure that the local sewers are being properly maintained and are functioning properly. So the major changes that occurred with Title III are the overall document structure. We updated the document structure so that it could be consistent with the other codes of regulations that exist here at the sewer district, and to improve the document's usability, not only for our member communities, but also for district staff. We went through all of the definitions, updated those, removed some terms to ensure that it is, again, consistent with the other codes of regulations that exist here at the sewer district. Now, the major update or change with Title III is the creation of the Water Quality Technical Support Program. This is a new program that is geared at aiding communities in addressing water quality related issues that are regulated by other agencies. This is a voluntary program, and participation in the Water Quality Technical Support Program will allow our member communities to be eligible for MCIP funding. So it's important to note that, you know, the original purpose of Title III was to be cooperative with our member communities. And so we are carrying that on through the creation of the Water Quality Technical Support Program. And the main purpose of this is to help communities in addressing those water quality issues such as illicit discharges, failing septic systems, and SSOs. So again, it's a voluntary program, but participation opens you up to MCIP funding. Now, the community discharge permit is still going to exist. Within that permit, we are going to require that the communities work to control excessive I&I, maintain and update their local sewer data, implement best management practices, and create a 5-year community compliance plan outlining how the community is going to come into compliance with the permit objectives. Like I said, we also updated Title IV similarly to the way that we updated Title III, where we went through and we updated the document structure to improve usability and consistency throughout the other codes. Again, looked at the definitions, removed some terms that were not being used, and updated other definitions so that they would be consistent with those other titles. The biggest change here in Title IV is a new chapter. It's a chapter on connections to or disconnections from the combined sewer system. So what this chapter does is it's really, we just pulled language that was already in Title IV and put it into one single chapter just to make it more user-friendly for our member communities. But it clearly identifies the process that's really already being implemented for connections to the combined sewer system. And it references a policy that we already have in place, that is the requirements for connections to the combined sewer system. Now this chapter and also the process to review connections and disconnections from the combined sewer system is important to ensure that new development does not increase runoff into the combined sewer system, thus potentially causing increased overflows downstream. Now, these updates to Title III and Title IV are going to be beneficial in many ways. Just providing a consistency across all of our titles is going to be a benefit. It's going to help district staff and our member communities in their usability. And we're also planning on updating the permits to just have one permit, a unified permit. As it stands now, communities that have separate sewers and combined sewers have two permits. They have a Title IV permit and a Title III permit. We are going to be creating just that one permit where the requirements of Title III and Title IV will be put into that single permit. And this is just to make it easier for our member communities to comply with the permit program. We're going to improve the utilization of district resources. So Title III and Title IV and the unified permits will align better to help utilize the local sewer system evaluation study. So all of our member communities should have received their community report from the LSSESs that were already conducted, identifying where those problems are and also identifying high-level solutions. And so we want to make sure that the titles and the permits align with the investment of the LSSESs, and then also set up our member communities to be in a good position to acquire the MCIP funding. And so, these updates are going to improve the usability, making it easier for our member communities to understand their role and understand the district roles. And it's also going to improve and make it much simpler to use by aligning Title III and Title IV with the permits, the LSSESs, and the compliance plan, and then that funding mechanism from the MCIP. This should all work in harmony to improve water quality and infrastructure investments all across our service area. So those are the updates on Title III and IV, and we just sent those to the board along with this minor update that I'll tell you about in just a second on Title V. And these will be sent out for 30-day review sometime this week. So we hope that you'll take a look at it and provide us any comments or any feedback. And then we will be going and making our rounds to our member communities and providing you updates on this and a little bit more detail and opportunities for questions and comments at a later date. Title V, just a minor update, but I think it's a big one because it's increasing folks' ability to apply and receive credits. So now folks can receive a credit for partial responsibility of maintenance from a stormwater control measure. In the past, they had to have 100% responsibility. And also no longer do they have to drain to that stormwater control measure, SCM, if they are, if that SCM is oversized to compensate for that area, and if they are partially responsible for that SCM. So we're opening up the credit program so that more folks can receive that discount and that credit from the stormwater fee. We updated the associated impervious surface definition so that accurately reflects the changes that were made to the credit eligibility. So those are the updates that I have for you today on 3, 4, and 5. And like I said, we will be reaching out to our member communities with more information on Titles 3, 4, and 5 and the unified permit at a later date. Thank you. Now I'll be handing it back over to Donna Friedman.
Thanks, Jeff. Any questions on those code updates that Jeff talked about, or the review time period or anything like that? No? Okay. All right. Well, then I will move along to the next part of this program today, the infrastructure funding update. So this map reflects the Member Community Infrastructure Program grant awards of 2023. There was almost $15 million awarded. In yellow, you'll see our equity investment focus area projects that were awarded. This was a new area that we created using the same criteria that we use for our affordability program, which is residents or households that are earning less than 250% of the poverty level. So we used census block data for median household income as well as average household size in order to create those areas. And these projects in that IFA area, we're still required to have the 25% match for those projects. However, they were not awarded any additional points for funding beyond that. So those projects in that IFA area were all scored against one another and not scored against the projects that you see there in the brown color. So the brown color were communities that weren't in that focus area, and those projects were all scored against one another. They did receive additional points if they were able to put up more match than the 25% that is required. So as you know, we have this program next year as well, hopefully $15 million again, and contracts for this year's awardees will be going out soon if you haven't received it yet, and then next round applications are due in the spring, so look forward to that. And then next up, we have the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. If you recall, the bipartisan infrastructure funding that was pushed out. So this is the money that went through to the Ohio EPA for the Ohio Clean Water State Revolving Fund. Approximately $100 million per year would be pushed to the Water Pollution Control Loan Fund. It's going to be 5 years of funding, and 49% of that funding each year is required to be in grant format. So they're referring to it as principal forgiveness. These grants are focused on disadvantaged communities, and OEPA has their own criteria for that, which I will show next. The district's goal and why we got involved was because we wanted to bring the maximum amount of grant funding through this IIJA grant to the region. So we decided to get involved and assist with applications for this money. So here's the affordability criteria, which the communities had to fall within three of the four of these criteria in order to be considered a disadvantaged community. So we looked across our service area, and there were about 20 communities that met this affordability criteria that I'm showing here on this map. And so the submittal process, this was our first year doing this because this was the first year that that grant principal loan forgiveness was available. And so communities that fell within this criteria put or provided those projects to us that they were interested in. And we reviewed those projects alongside of our local sewer system evaluation studies. We looked at what tier those projects fell into. We tried to identify whether or not that project was something that we knew we could design in a relatively short amount of time and do a good job doing that. And then we put in applications. So we ended up applying for 8 projects, about $8.3 million, and they were all design projects. So if we are awarded next year, then we'll be seeking construction funding for some of those projects if we're awarded, but we'll also potentially be seeking to design more projects as well. So if you fell into that criteria or you think that you may next year, please let us know if you have any projects that you are interested in us working on. for those projects. The sewer district assisted with forming the application. The community still had to be the applicant. But then if the award goes out, then the district will be taking over design and construction of that project. And then lastly, the Ohio EPA, I guess all of EPA, not just Ohio, reports to Congress on clean water needs, and they do that partially through this survey. And so they take the survey results that goes out to communities, and they report back to state and congressional for budgeting efforts. They also use the public information, and they help to support other clean water initiatives as well. So they do this every 4 years. And if you haven't received it for your community yet, you can contact this email address here and request that survey. It is due October 28th, so it's coming up. And then lastly, I put Nicole's info on here if she is your watershed team leader, or my info on here as well, if you are in that area where we're still trying to backfill that position. Feel free to reach out to your watershed team leader or to me if you have any questions about today's presentation. And with that, I will check the chat. I do not see any questions. Does anyone have any lingering questions or thoughts before we close out for today? No? Okay. Well, the next Cuyahoga River North Watershed Advisory Committee meeting will be in March. We're hoping to do that in person. So I'm sure we'll see all of you and talk to you all sooner than that. But have a good day, and thanks for joining today.